Welcome to another episode of Southern Arizona's Nonprofits, the superheroes impacting our community. We're broadcasting live today on the Tucson Business Channel, a division of Mark Bishop Media, from the Stewart Title corporate offices on Broadway in Tucson, Arizona. And this show is brought to you by SCIP, SSCIP, the Social Services Contractor Indemnity Pool, ensuring nonprofits like ours for more than 3.5 decades. It's not just another insurance company, it's a pool where nonprofits are members that have a say in how it's run. And I'm Barbara McClure, Executive Director of Impact of Southern Arizona, host of this show. And with me today are two ladies from different nonprofits actually doing very different things. One recently participated in a competition called Fast Pitch, which we'll learn about as well. It sounds like baseball, but it's not. And the other provides a wonderful service to children in need that helps them feel secure. So I hope you'll join me in welcoming Caroline Isaacs, Executive Director of Just Communities, Arizona. Welcome.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me. And also Patti Lopez, who's the Executive Director of Angel Heart Pajama Project.
Hi, it's great to be here today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for coming. I think there's so many things going on in Tucson right now in the spring, and just as all the snowbirds leave. So we've all been busy with lots of different activities and events, and I know there's still some coming. So I thought I would start with you, Caroline, because I know you have something coming up, but your nonprofit is such an interesting name, and I think your mission is probably one of the most lofty missions I've ever heard any nonprofit attempt or work on, really. I'm sure you can get it done, but it is an amazing thing. So can you share with us what your mission of your nonprofit is?
Certainly. So our mission at Just Communities, Arizona, is to create new models for justice and safety outside the punishment system.
Sure, maybe you can explain on what that is, expound on it, because it sounds so simple.
And yet it is not. So I personally spent a lot of years working on the issue of mass incarceration, which is a huge crisis in this country and in Arizona. We have the 5th highest incarceration rate in the country here in Arizona. And 1 in 13 Arizonans has a criminal conviction on their record.
Oh, that's an interesting number.
And that's what mass incarceration means. It means it's impacting most of our families and people that we know. And we were trying to do this from the sort of top down, right? Looking at the laws that are, harshly punishing relatively minor crimes, putting people away for longer, limiting their opportunities when they're released. And what we realized, besides the fact that it is very, 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 very hard to pass legislation in Arizona, is that what we really need as a society, as a culture, is a collective vision for what safety looks like that is not just police and courts and prisons and jails. And so our work is acknowledging the fact that that already exists in our communities, that our neighbors and small organizations all over Tucson, all over Arizona, have these models for solving problems and dealing with the issues in their community. And that's what we should be looking at replicating to create safety from where we all live.
Sure, that what comes to mind first is Neighborhood Watch.
Right. And I think that's a great place to start. But what happens when your Neighborhood Watch sees something?
Right.
Right? And then what happens is often, you're going to the police. And we've seen that the police have now become the first resort for people in mental health crisis, for people who have addiction issues, and for things that the police are really not trained or really want to do, right? And all of these other services have lost funding as we've put more and more resources into this punishment system. So what else could we as neighbors do when we see another neighbor in trouble? What are the kinds of solutions that we can come up with collectively to address poverty in our neighborhoods, to address lack of programs for kids, lack of healthy food, all the things that create safety in the big sense, not just the not having your Amazon package stolen off your porch sense.
There you go. That's a common thing, I think, these days.
Indeed.
Well, and your organization recently transitioned, so you're an NGO. So maybe you can give us some background on that.
Sure. So that was the work that I mentioned. It was very policy focused. So trudging up to Phoenix and talking with our illustrious elected leaders about these issues. And we made tremendous progress. There's a conversation in Arizona about our sentencing laws and how effective or not effective they are that would not have happened, I don't believe, without that work. But again, what's missing is we literally call this in our office the what instead. That what we're about is the what instead. What else could we do? There's so many creative, innovative, fun, interesting solutions to this myriad of problems that we face as communities. But we're just not putting the energy there, and we're not calling that safety. That's, services or philanthropy or what have you. But really, safety is all of these things. And so that transition, besides, being independent financially, Arizona-based nonprofit, was about this pivot to being hyper-local and looking from communities up at what's already creating safety and how can we build on that.
So are you thinking that when you have safety in the community, because of course as Impact has a food bank and provides those services, are you thinking that as people are more stable, there will be less crime or there's less reason for incarceration?
Certainly. I mean, that is a factor, right? We know that poverty is at the crux of much of law-breaking behavior, right? Why do people use drugs? If we actually bothered to answer this question, we'd be looking right back at all the things that the people in this room do and out there in the community. So it is, and safety is about more than, your Amazon package, right? If you don't have enough food to eat, you are not safe.
Right. You don't feel safe for sure.
Yeah, you are literally in physical danger, right? If you are about to be evicted from your home, you're not safe. If your kid is in a mental health crisis, they're not safe. So it's also about, this newer, broader definition of what safety really means. And then how can we create that in a way that's equitable and just more creative.
Well, that'll be really interesting to see. And how long have you been doing that work?
So we became JCA January 1st of 22. Okay. So we have a little over a year under our belt. It's going great.
With COVID and, in its waning year.
Challenge.
Sure. Well, it sounds interesting. And I know you have some things you're doing for communities. So I'd like to come back to that in a couple of minutes too, because I think it's important. And I recognize how you are doing things so locally. So I'm going to follow up with you in a minute. But I think also, Patti, with Angel Heart Pajama Project, you are really all over Tucson. But I think for those kids that you are helping, it feels like local safety. So
it is.
Maybe you can talk about what Angel Heart Pajama Project does and give us a little background on how you got started.
Angel Heart Pajama Project is a locally grown nonprofit. Our mission is to provide pajamas, brand new books, and little cuddle pillows to children who have not been in safe situations. So I understand and I'm learning from what you said, Carolyn. But these are all children who have been in, or currently are taken away from families, are in shelters, using food banks, DCS. We have a myriad of organizations or agencies who receive the brand new pajamas and books and cuddle pillows to help kids feel safe and that they're loved and cared for and that there is hope. We're trying to bring children hope, that you may be in a very rough spot right now, but we're here to support you and bring hope. Your future is still bright, can be very bright. So that's what we're about. And we're just starting our 10th year, and Angel Heart was started by a refugee family, Graciela Lopez, who we finally called Nana, and who two daughters who were Cuban refugees in the 60s, late 60s, and escaped Cuba for political, religious asylum and persecution that they were enduring, and ended up here. And as a way of paying it forward, Nana, prior to her death, with very little money that she had left, started this to support children whatever their need was at the time and to help families. So, yeah, and we have still carried this forward. Nana has since passed, and the two sisters are not able to work with Angel Heart much anymore. So I was asked as a dear friend of the family to help move this forward. And 10 years later, we're doing it.
Well, we're glad you're there.
Thank you.
I first found out about this organization about 10 years ago, and they came to a meeting at the Optimist Club. And that's where I met them. And it was interesting because I think they were just starting out of the garage at the time. So it's nice to see that it's come so far and grown so much in 10 years. And nice to have you at the helm taking over as the family has to stand back. So that's very cool.
Yes, we started with 3. I think that first year started with 3 agencies, and we're now serving 80 agencies. And we go predominantly in Tucson, but we go to Marana, all the way down south towards Nogales, Sierra Vista, and we have such community support. We have a priest who during COVID learned to fly a small plane.
Oh my gosh.
And he flies the pajamas to Yuma every quarter for us.
Oh, that's such a fun story.
It's just a wonderful community involvement. So yes, we just have spread our wings and have grown tremendously. They would be surprised at the growth.
That is fun. And I'm sure the kids just love them. Yes. I know we've seen kids who get those kinds of, even for us, often it's a very simple thing, but it is so meaningful in the lives of those kids. So that's pretty cool. Do you have any idea how many children you've served over the 10 years? Or
it's approximately 43,000.
My gosh, that's a lot of pajamas.
Right. It has just grown and grown. And just this last year in December, when we kind of closed the year, we had served 7,300. And up from, just to show the need out there and the poverty that Caroline was talking about and the safety, I think we had served about 30-some hundred to 4,000. And we jumped up to 7,300.
That is amazing.
So yes, it's just growing. The need out there in the communities is just growing exponentially.
And I know Impact has a clothing bank, and we're up in Catalina. So we are going to partner so that the kids in our clothing bank can get books and cuddle pillows and
we're happy
and
to
new
do
pajamas.
that. Yeah. We're serving about, I think, Marana Food Bank, Sahuarita, Green Valley, Arivaca. Mm-hmm. And so now we're going to add you.
That'll be perfect.
That'll be wonderful.
And we are serving about 2,000 individuals through our clothing bank every month. So it will go to a lot of children. And we love the idea of books. We have a book program in our clothing bank because it's it's great for literacy, of course, but it's also a little bit of an escapism, when you have another story about somebody going through something else. So it'll be very fun. I think it's a great partnership. So thank you.
Forward to it.
Yeah, we'll connect. That's the fun of this show is, I think the community gets to connect with new nonprofits and find somebody that you have a passion that matches. And then we often end up connecting as a group and just broadening the safety net here in Arizona with all these nonprofits. So, Caroline, I was going to ask you, when you're talking about it, you were using the term punishment system versus criminal justice system. So, obviously, I understand the general sense of that, but how does that reflect how you do your business, and what does that really mean to you?
Precisely. Well, we tell the truth. So I think it's really important to acknowledge the reality of a situation and what a system is set up to do and is meant to do and is not meant to do. Right. So many of the systems that we refer to as public safety are really mostly about punishment. Right. It's about waiting until something horrible happens and then figuring out who's responsible for that and meting out some kind of punishment. And so it's very limited in terms of how well it actually solves those problems and what sort of generative, helpful, and positive effects it has on people's well-being. So we just, want to acknowledge that words have power, and it's just important to be clear.
And I know since you've started as the nonprofit, you've done some community assessments and community feedback. So what have you learned so far from the different communities in Tucson?
Indeed. So we also believe in research, right? We want to know what we're talking about, especially when we're making a big move and taking on different work. So early on, back in 2019, we had a staff person, Dr. Grace Gomez, who really had a tremendous aptitude for community participatory research, right? And so just posing this question, what does safety mean to you? What does safety feel like to you? And asking people in one community. So this was the first project we did. It's very, qualitative, right? And we talked with people in Barrio Centro, right, which is
Sure.
majority Latinx, over-policed, right, a TPD hotspot, very under-resourced. They just closed the elementary school there, right, because it's in the flight path of Davis Montham. And talking to folks in this neighborhood, what does safety look and feel like to you? And the responses were so fascinating because it was about what you were just talking about, actually. It's about connection. It's about having relationships that are positive, with knowing who your neighbors are, which was a huge one, and having relationships with the people in your neighborhood, which, when you think about it, makes sense, right? Because, who is that guy on the corner, and what is he doing? Oh, well, if you know who that guy is on the corner, and you know he owns the house two doors down from you, then he's not suspicious anymore, and he doesn't feel threatening to you anymore. But people also talked about, having a place for my kids to ride their bikes, looking out for each other as a community, having green spaces and parks and trees, right, and gardens, and talking about play and recreation, and all of this as safety, which is so different than this kind of very institutional concept that we've had so far. Safety is like cops, right? But when you think about it, for certain communities, cops sometimes create the opposite of safety, right, mm-hmm. for certain people. And so kind of looking at it from this experiential position and then say, okay, well, let's dig into that a little bit more. So after the Barrio Centro study, we were like, let's do some, actual survey, quantitative study. So we actually surveyed 1,200 individuals here in the city of Tucson. So we did all 6 wards. This is through a grant with Microsoft, the Urban Institute, and later supported by the city of Tucson. And the Microsoft piece was great because they gave us access to all their fancy software to do the data visualization, right? So we could upload the responses to the survey and get this amazing dashboard that you can search and find out, what do women over 35 in Ward 3 think about X? And boom, it spits it out for you. So we asked about quality of life issues, housing affordability and access, education, healthcare. We asked about interactions with the criminal punishment system. We asked about people's confidence in the police to handle situations in which people are in mental health crisis. And what we found is very similar, that people, for the most part, were talking about those basic needs. The number one concern people voiced is housing. No surprise, right?
Yeah.
We have a huge crisis here, and you certainly are not safe if you don't have a roof over your head. The second thing that people identified as their biggest concern, inequality.
Inequality.
The number 2, which is amazing that is something that there is this huge consensus that exists, right?
Sure.
And B, that it is something that people say, this is a problem that I want to solve.
And I feel it in my daily life.
Absolutely.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Gosh, you came away with some interesting information. And even when you just, if you just asked me at the beginning of the show, how do I define safety? I wouldn't have even thought of all those things. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's a reflection of where we live but I think it was really what you were saying. I think mostly safety of being, is my house safe? Am I going to get burglarized? I have this little door where my garage door opener lives, and I flip it open. I back out the garage, I click the button, I close the door, and some days I arrive at work, and when I'm getting out of the car, I look down and that door is still open, and I think, do I remember closing the garage door? And then instantly I do not have a feeling of safety, but it's probably the first time of the day I don't feel safe. It is interesting how I think that's the norm, maybe, or not the norm, but kind of the stigma of that word. Is it has a different definition. So
yeah.
This is kind of fun. I'm going to go home and rethink it tonight. I'm going to ask that question to my husband, see what he says.
And I think that it's interesting the difference you get when you ask about feeling safe. What makes you feel safe? When have you felt safe? And I find people go back to memories of, childhood, being with your parents, community gatherings, holiday meals, and things like that. And that sense of belonging and family and being held in community.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm taking so many notes because I'm going to have to rethink so many different things. So, what are some examples of the kinds of local organizations that are modeling holistic community safety approaches here in Tucson?
These are so fun. I have so many favorite examples. There's this guy named David Garcia, and in South Tucson, he has a project called Barrio Restoration Project, and it is David on his bike. And on the back of his bike, he has a cart with landscaping materials, and he rides around and cleans up corners. And people come out of their houses and they help him. Or he says, this week we're going to clean up this corner down here. And it's about taking pride in the place where you live, right? Taking ownership of the place that you live and feeling more a part of that place, which creates safety, right? And he's talking, and the neighbors come out and they're talking over the fence. What are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this. Great. I'll come help you. Where are you going to be next time? Amazing guy. In Barrio Centro, which I mentioned, there's a group called Flowers and Bullets that when the school board closed that school, they organized, and they're like, relatively young to me, I'm old now, young folks, right, organized and got the school board to lease them the land, and they put a farm on it.
Oh, that's
so they're
fun.
growing food. They're teaching people how to grow food. They're having farmers markets. They're teaching people how to harvest water and save the rain to water their gardens. They have community celebrations there and work days. They raise goats, the most adorable little baby goats with their floppy ears. This is just responding to what the needs are. When COVID hit, they started sewing masks, and they talked to a local distillery and got them to make hand sanitizer, and went around and just gave it out to neighbors for free. They're in a food desert, right? Like a lot of places in Tucson where there's not like healthy, affordable access to food. It's like, liquor stores and check cashing places and Circle K. So they got the local bar owner to let them do a farmer's market in the parking lot of the bar on Sundays. So people can come out and buy, vegetables.
That's very fun. Well, it just shows people how you can be very creative to make a change in your community. Those are fun examples. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break to hear from Skip, and we'll be back in a moment.
Today's program is brought to you by SKIP, the Social Service Contractors Indemnity Pool. SKIP is a member-owned, member-directed insurance provider with more than 3 decades of insuring Arizona social service organizations for their property, general and professional liability, and auto claim exposures. With an Arizona-based staff of claim underwriting and risk management professionals, SKIP specializes in providing personalized service, affordable premiums, and coverage which meets and often exceeds the state of Arizona's contract requirements for social service providers. For more information, visit our website at www.sscip.org or ask your insurance agent about protecting your organization with insurance coverage through SKIP.
And we're back. I'm here with Caroline Isaacs, Executive Director of Just Communities Arizona, and Patti Lopez, Executive Director of Angel Heart Pajama Project. And we're hearing about all kinds of issues around safety and feeling secure. So it's a nice match of two nonprofits that do something completely different. Patti, let me ask you, we talked about your impact over the last 10 years, and do you have stories from specific families that you like to share? I know it's fun to hear some of Caroline's personal stories.
We don't always get to see the families because they're in shelters or children that are in DCS, for example, or the families going through the food banks, but we get testimony from the agencies. And so often when you talked about feelings, how did this make you feel? They will say that the kids just will hold the pillows and it made them feel comfy and cozy. The same with the pajamas. If we go back to our childhood, hopefully most of us had a nice pair of pajamas to wear. Our children many times are taken out of the home or placed somewhere with only the clothes on their back. And so again, we're hearing that they just feel cared for with those cozy pajamas. They're usually bright and colorful. I know one agency, Ron McDonald, said they had a little girl who got pajamas and she wouldn't take them off for 3 days. She just ran around in her jammies and loved them very, very much so.
And probably also because they were given to her personally, or she got to choose the pair that...
Right. We usually get the size for the child so that when they get them, they can put them on right away. They're all wrapped with a ribbon, and we take the tags off in case they don't have scissors or something to take the tags off. And so, yeah, they get very excited to open them up, and the book is with them and the pillow, and so it's a gift that they can say is their own. So again, it's how they're made to feel. That's part of our mission, not just the gifting of the items, that's important, but it's what the meaning behind it.
We talk about that as a staff a lot at Impact. There's the output, the things you give away, but it really is the outcome and how they feel and how it changes their lives that's so important. So all of the pajamas are new, correct?
Correct.
When you were commenting about cutting out the tags. But I know your pillows have a very fun story. So maybe you can share that.
Yes, the pillows are all handmade. They're small, 11 by 11, one right here, 12 by 12, 11 by 11, but they're just small enough that even the teens love them. They hold them when we give them to them. But we have people who've come from all walks of life and parts of the community and will just call us because they see it on our website. And they said, can we make pillows? And I said, absolutely. So one story in particular, we have a husband and wife team that bring us 120 per week.
That just sounds
to
like
make sure
so
we have
many.
enough.
I have to say, for you listeners who can't see inside the studio, Patti did bring a box that has some of these pillows, and at that number, 120 a week, everybody's eyes went large because they're hand sewing them, and that is an amazing thing to do for the community.
The husband cuts the fabric, measures and cuts, and I think she stuffs and sews the pillows, and they're there faithfully every Monday. And they know each quarter we're going to give close to 1,000, so they just keep bringing till we reach we figured mathematically about how many the children we're serving, and so they keep bringing them. And then others, we have church groups, civic groups. We have grandparents who have their children for the summer, and I have a couple of grandmas who said, we want our children to participate and feel like they're doing something to give to other children. So they're teaching them to make pillows. So.
And it's great to bring young children into philanthropy that way and just help ground that in them. So that is a neat opportunity. And I know we hear from a lot of people in the community who are seamstresses who always want to sew something. And, you know, if you sew quilts, it's fun to make the quilt, but how many quilts can you keep in your own home? So that is nice to be able to have an outlet for people to make something that is so significant for kids.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We've also had groups make pajamas, not as often.
Sure.
They're a little more difficult and time consuming, but we've had groups making pajamas, so that's awesome for us.
That is so nice. Well, it's a neat gift, and I know you can't see what we have here, but all the pillows have small patterns on them. There are dinosaurs, there is Wonder Woman, and just interesting color combinations. So
Making the kids feel uplifted again. That's how they feel. And, cozy, they're Disney characters. Just the colors are bright. We have research that shows, that really makes the children feel good. So if they have a nice pillow and a cozy pair of pajamas that are kid-friendly,
very
the
nice.
aesthetics.
Lucky kids in our community. And I know we have a lot of foster kids and a lot of adopted children. So it is nice. And you even do this for teens. You made a comment that even the teens love those pillows.
Right. We have a couple of group homes where kids have never been fostered out or adopted. We're working with. One is fostered up. And so they are older kids, so we make sure we have sizes. We don't want to leave any kid, I still call them kids.
Sure.
They're just in big bodies. So we don't want to leave anybody out. So we just, we're doing pajama drives, or we write grants for pajamas. We make sure we get larger sizes too. And then they've got books, we'll get them chapter books, but they still like the pillows.
Sure.
They'll still hold the pillows, or maybe they don't have one where they're at. So they'll use it to put their head down.
So pajama drive, that's an interesting idea. So do you utilize a lot of volunteers in your organization, or do you need pajama drives? That sounds like something I would think would be fun to do.
Both, all of the above. So pajama drives just really sustain us. We have businesses again, we have schools, we have university groups, all sorts of clubs and organizations on campus, you name it, that will contact us, or we send letters out, and they will offer to do a pajama drive. And then we have flyers that we'll send them if they want to create a flyer, give them examples, and to advertise. And then, and we also gift them boxes, big boxes, that they can put wherever they're going to put them and collect the pajamas. So yeah, book drives also. So it works wonderfully well.
And because Impact is a food drive related, or food bank, and we have so many food drives, we have young grandchildren who are 5 and 2. And so we have taken them to the store and let them choose whatever they want to get to donate to their local food bank. They live out of state. And I bet kids, they love to buy food for other kids. And I bet they would love to do pajamas. That's a fun thing to do with kids. So
They do. They do love that.
well, you might get some pajamas shipped from Seattle,
Great.
knowing the kids and the grandkids. So that's fun. So what do you see in the future then, Patti, for your organization?
Right now, we're trying to do more outreach. We were gifted, believe it or not, a vehicle for our distribution and for driving all the pajamas around and taking them to the agencies and making sure. So we're looking at other areas, just like you and I talked, further north, and really areas that are hard to get to around not just Tucson, but even outlying areas, rural areas. I'm working with the Gila River Nation right now. I did not know, I assumed there was a tremendous need, but I've learned a lot more of the specific needs. So I see that. We're going to do a lot more outreach, and our volunteers have become so sophisticated at the folding and the preparing of the pajamas, the bagging them, that I see us just, I myself getting out more and finding more need wherever it's at and trying to meet that need.
Very nice. Well, we'll have to connect after the show because we serve the rural communities in the Copper Corridor, and there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of children there, and a giant void of resources. So that will be very
We're
fun.
happy to
All
help.
right. Nice. Well, those kids would love to have new pajamas. So that's good. And then where do you look for mentorship? Do you have a mentoring program or?
Not per se, but we work with all sorts of businesses. I'm part of several civic groups, Rotaries, the Lions Clubs, and I think just through the networking we do, or I do, and I'm really the only staff member right now.
Oh, gosh.
So it's, just trying to get all the support that I can and new ideas, connecting with other nonprofits. I think the more we network and are open to being mentored and learning, to me, that's the key. It's about the relationships and the networking.
So really mentoring the community.
Yes.
And connecting with community, which you're right, I think we all need to do, and it does make our community better.
Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, I was going to ask you too, and I think Caroline, but you're Caroline, aren't you?
Yes,
Well,
thank you for asking.
I bet you get it a lot.
I do.
Can you talk about, you were talking about surveying the wards, but I know you have another project coming up in the near future, and I wanted to have you talk about that because it feels like it's next week or right around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
And then I also wanted to hear your comments about fast pitch,
Oh,
because
my
I think many of our listeners probably are not sure what fast pitch is.
Yes. Well, where should I start? Events or fast pitch?
Well, why don't you start with your big event so that we're sure we get that covered, especially if we want people to participate.
Yes, indeed. So the survey that I mentioned, we wanted to be sure to take that information back to the folks that generated that data. Too often, I think people in some communities, like come in, they fill out a survey, and nothing ever comes of that. Right.
Or they don't know, they didn't see anything come of it. Sure.
Right. Like, thanks for the data. Bye. So we really wanted to be accountable to folks and also make sure we got it right. So to get people's feedback on, like, what do you think this means? We think it means this. What do you think? And of course, the big question is, what do you want to do next? Right? Are there projects that we want to start seeding or thinking about, or people want to come together around? So we are having a series of community feedback sessions in each of the wards, just as we did the research, so that this is accessible to the whole community. One will be also broadcast on Zoom for folks that don't want to come to a room full of folks or can't make it.
That's a good idea.
And one will be all in Spanish and also online. So these are starting on the 18th. And they're all over town. The first is at the Donna Liggins Center on 6th Avenue. That's Ward 3, I believe. And then we'll be at Pima College East. We'll be at Quincy Douglas Center, the Udall Center on the east side, the Unitarian Church on 22nd and Swan, and the YWCA near downtown on the west side. So folks can go to our webpage, justcommunitiesarizona, all spelled out, .org, to get more information about where these are, or just send us an email, hello@justcomaz.org.
Oh, that's a fun one. Hello at versus officer info.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, that'll be good. You can get some more feedback, and it sounds like the next step will be interesting. It'll be the map to a better future,
That's the
a
plan.
safer future.
And I should say that, since these events are in the evening, they're like 5:30 to 7, most of them, we will feed you. There will be probably, some Costco pizza because, we're on a budget, but, cookies and all that stuff. And kids are welcome. We will have a space for kids to be, so you don't have to worry about childcare. Bring whoever's with you on the way home from school, get them a piece of pizza, and come talk to us about safety.
That's a good way to do it. That's important to get people out. I was thinking too about your story about the school. And, so often we see where schools get closed and then those buildings sit idle. Mm-hmm. And I know my husband and I drove up to Phoenix and we were talking about there was this giant mall that is absolutely empty now. And we thought, what in the world can even be done with a space like that? So I think it's really interesting that the school district was forward thinking enough to lease that building out to something that's so not school and so unlike that. And what a great opportunity to use a building that would otherwise just sit and decay. Because, of course, it's always going to be under Davis-Month and
Yeah.
air flight paths. So
Unfortunately, it was only the land that they were able to lease. They're working on getting access to the buildings. And again, that, the schools, elementary schools become the heart of a community. That's where, ESL classes are, where, immunization clinics are held. And so I think that's really what Flowers and Bullets is looking to do is kind of replace that, beating heart of the community and provide a place for people to come together.
sure, well, hopefully it'll work. That's a pretty neat,
It's working so far.
neat opportunity. So, and then maybe you can tell us about Fast Pitch, or if you're, or I can tell people what Social Venture Partners is, and then maybe I'll do that, and then you can explain what it was like to be a contestant.
Sounds good.
So Social Venture Partners is an organization here in Tucson that brings people who have a heart for philanthropy together. And then they have a whole group of vetted nonprofits that are worth investing in. And it's an opportunity to make a small amount of your small donation matched with other people who have the same kind of passion, put your money together and support these nonprofits. And so they do a lot of things. Their mission, I think, as Social Venture Partners says, it all starts with one person. One person joins many people, and together they will help build communities able to solve our most entrenched problems. So it's really a global network of local partners who are aligning passion with purpose. And what they do is they have their partners are funders. And so they come together, all these different funders, and they do seminars and learn about, other ways to fund appropriately and how to connect with other organizations and other people. But then they go out and give money to nonprofits. So one of the fun annual events in Tucson is their competition called Fast Pitch. And basically organizations write an application to join, and they select 8. This year they selected 8. And Caroline was one of them, representing her organization, and they get coaching. So Caroline, why don't you share the perspective of Fast Pitch from somebody on that other side?
Sure. Yeah, I've been jokingly referring to it as Shark Tank for nonprofits, but much nicer.
That's not unlike it, probably. A friendlier panel of judges, maybe.
Indeed. And it's really, to their credit, I think, instead of making it feel, competitive and pitting us against one another, it really was much more of a team feeling that, we're all supporting each other, rooting for each other, helping each other with our pitch. And it's just that. It is your 3-minute, what is it that you do? Why should I care? And why should I give you money? And so for someone who likes words a lot, like I do, this was a challenge to get it, and also who does something very unusual that's hard to explain. It was tricky, and I really was so blessed to have been included at this point where our organization is kind of new and evolving, and our work is, we're building the bicycle while we're riding it sometimes, to have that coaching and support in here, you might want to phrase it this way or come at it from this other direction. And the feedback from folks about what of the pitch was really resonating or landing or that people could relate to versus other things. We're so used to, I think, filling out grant applications and what do you do? I do this and I serve this many people and da 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 da. And that for the pitch, you want to talk about why do you do that, right? What's in your heart and what is the passion and your vision that you want, and that's what people are going to relate to and respond to and get behind. So having that coaching was tremendous. We get mentors. Each of us get 2 mentors to meet with us independently, work on our pitch. The feedback coaches are all great. The whole staff there was so supportive, and then we had each other. So it was a tremendous experience, and for this competitive process, but then you get all of this help and support and coaching and teaching, for free, and that's nobody teaches you how to do this stuff in the nonprofit world. I'm sure you all can relate,
Patty's
right?
Nodding. Yeah,
That's true.
We're out there making it up and doing the best that we can, and so to just feel so cared for was really lovely. It's very nice.
That is fun. So I thought it'd be fun to share what it was like as an audience member, because my husband and I were both there. And part of the fun was when they announced that there was a prime group of philanthropists who together, and some were foundations and organizations, but they came with $121,000 to give these 8 nonprofits. And so it was really kind of a fun moment. And during the pitches, we in the audience could also donate to the nonprofits. They had a QR code up, so we could go to a website and you could donate to one person, or you could make one donation and split it between all 8 of them. To your point, Carolyn, about they made it kind of a team thing. Mm. And so just that night alone, the Fast Pitch partners, or the SVP partners, gave out $121,000 to these 8 organizations to help them do their mission work. And then I hadn't heard, what the results were from the audience, but I know in the audience by the end of the, what is it, 3 times 8, 24 minutes and a half an hour of these 8 pitches, the audience had also donated $40,000, and the Connie Hillman Foundation, who's a wonderful supporter in Tucson, matched that $40,000. So we're looking at $200,000 raised in about a half an hour. So it is a very powerful thing, and it is a very, to coin a phrase, impactful event that does change how nonprofits can operate. And they're all unrestricted funds as well.
That's correct.
So I think it's an interesting thing that Social Venture Partners does, and it's an interesting way you can buy a ticket and fall in and watch it from Zoom. So even for people in the audience, if you want to discover more nonprofits, that's an interesting event to get a ticket to and watch it in the comfort of your living room. If you don't want to come down to Tucson, it was a very cold night.
But the food was great.
It was, that's true. They do put on a party as well. There's a
Swanky party. Yeah.
nice celebration at the end for after all that work. So it is about a 3-month window of work for the nonprofit contestants. So thank you for doing that. That was very nice.
It was an honor.
So that's something to look into, Social Venture Partners. But I know in our organizations, and I kind of touched on this with you, Patti, we cannot operate without donors and partners and these kinds of funders. And so for the Angel Heart Project, then what kind of funding do you get? Do you get a lot of people in the community who donate? All of the information is on the webpage of this episode so that people can find these 2 nonprofits and find out how to donate directly. But
yeah, we're blessed too that we get a lot of individual donors. We write a lot of grants all the time, and we can't operate without it. It is, although we're all nonprofits, it is a business, and you have to run it as such. So a lot of the funders will want to make sure that it goes to programming. I think majority want programming, and we rightfully so. We want it to go to the program, and not for as much infrastructure. But you do need a little bit to operate for the infrastructure. So I think some funders are realizing that more. And since COVID, I've noticed the funding is less restricted. So we have a little more to operate with. But yeah, that's our lifeline, is the individual donors, the grants, our pajama drives. It's just another way. I mean, every pair of pajama, the accountant that's donating her time has valued them at $10 a pair, the books $10 a pair, and we get most everything online and buy it in bulk so that it's less expensive rather than going into a store.
that's nice to be able to do that. We've been looking for some book outlets, and it's actually tough to find bulk books at a really good rate. So that's neat that you're able to do that.
And our books come from predominantly Barnes & Noble. We do a fundraiser with them at least three times, maybe 4 times a year. And they have been a phenomenal partner. And we plan the fundraiser, and everything that's sold, we get a percentage of the proceeds. It's a lot of fun. We have activities for kids, from scavenger hunts during December we have a polar ride with a train around the building. We have readers, Santa reads, hot chocolate. They decorate cookies and cakes. So, and then we get gift cards back from Barnes & Noble, and they also donate a lot of books. So, yeah, we're always out there trying to secure resources.
What a great partnership.
Yeah.
Did you once have an event at Barnes & Noble where there was a small horse that came in slippers and the children got to read to the horse?
Yes.
Now that you're saying Barnes & Noble, I remember that. And I just remember thinking that was so interesting.
A friend of ours has a horse, Blue, and she dressed Blue all up for the holidays, and kids got books, and they would go read to Blue, and Blue would just stand there like, and Blue let the kids pet her, and it was beautiful event. So,
And such
yes.
an unusual thing to see a horse inside, Barnes and Noble in a small, and I don't know if the horse had pajamas or slippers or something. So
Had little booties or something
yeah.
on it.
So, what a great thing for kids. So that's a very creative fundraising idea. And then Caroline, you must also have to raise funds. I'm sure it's not an inexpensive job to get through the whole town.
Certainly not. Yes. So, we do write a lot of grants. We're building our individual donor program. That's not when we were the previous organization. We were part of a national organization that had a whole development department that we don't have anymore. So we're building out that piece. And making new connections, really focusing on getting to know folks in our community and get the word out.
Very nice. And you must also use volunteers then, not just for surveys. Are a lot of your surveys online, or do you do them in person also?
Yeah, we really, in collecting the surveys, we wanted to be sure that we were working with folks who were from the communities that we were surveying, right? So it's not me rolling up in somebody's neighborhood saying, hey, take my survey. And we also, really want to value people's labor. So we actually will hire folks as, in that case, co-researchers, and pay a stipend for their work, give them, gas cards and things like that to run around. The survey itself was online, but we would go to the swap meet, to food bank, to Fourth Avenue, to neighborhood celebrations and events, to try to get folks to fill out the survey. Swim day at the neighborhood pool and things like that. So, so having those co-researchers has been really important. And for these sessions we're holding next week, we have co-facilitators. So same idea, someone who is from that area who is going to be with the staff of JCA and presenting the information and leading that discussion among folks from their community.
That's very nice. Makes it so personal and, again, so local. So, but you're just in the city of Tucson, is that correct? You haven't
Actually, we have a
reached out
staff
beyond?
person. I mean, we're all, we don't have a physical office. We all work from
okay.
home. So we do have a staff person in Phoenix and, work with some community organizations very similar in the Phoenix area. So community gardening groups, public health outreach groups, just a tremendous variety, arts groups, youth groups, and really hope to build this network across the whole entire state, particularly, rural communities are so under-resourced, so overlooked. And I'm sure there are amazing people doing amazing things, and we just need to go find them.
There you go. Well, your job sounds very large. And I know they're, and so that's, like I say, I think you're one of the nonprofits that has the loftiest mission work or the loftiest vision, but that you're on your way to get there. That's nice. And hopefully all of our communities will feel safer and at least have enjoyed participating in that conversation and realizing what safe is to them. Again, I'm going to go home tonight. We're going to have that discussion at the dinner table.
Great.
And then also, Patti, all you're doing for kids who do not feel safe and who are so often in unsafe environments. What a wonderful way to make them feel loved and supported. And those cuddle pillows, I can just imagine.
I want one.
I know, aren't they? They're so cute. And just the idea of a child holding a pillow on, it's the same, with a stuffed animal. So
Right.
we so appreciate all you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to add that you want our listeners to know? Either one of you, that you have something
we
coming
appreciate
up?
the community support. We can't do it without the volunteers. We're blessed that we have so many volunteers weekly, whether they're doing work at home like the pillows or coming to fold and jammies. So we're appreciative of everything.
There you go. It sounds like you have things you can do at home as well as at an event. And it sounds like you mostly are
We're
At
out there.
events
Come talk
where
to
you
us.
need volunteers. Is that right, Caroline?
That's right. And I just want to thank you, Barbara, for having both of us today, but certainly, my lofty and unusual organization and the chance to talk about what is very different work than I know, people are used to hearing about. So thank you for this opportunity to, get it out there.
Well, you're very welcome. That's the magic of Tucson, I think. We have so many nonprofits, and so it's very fun to introduce new and different things to the community. And hopefully you'll find people in the audience who have a passion for what you do, who will want to join you. So thank you both for coming.
Thank you. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it greatly.
And have a wonderful spring.
Thank you.
Thank you.